Well, thank you everybody for joining us. My name is Jim Barrett, and I'm the founder of SCV Hikers. And my guest today is Monica Tracy, who has been my co-leader with this group. I started it in Los Angeles in 2020, and Monica joined us about a year later and very kindly stepped up to be my co-leader for the weeks that I wasn't going to be in town because we didn't want to have it just stop if I was in and out of town, which I was for starting about a year later. But Monica, I want to thank you for joining me today and appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
How did you find SCV Hikers the first time?
Well, I had been looking for a place or people or a group to hike with. All my other groups kind of all faded out, and I had nobody to hike with. And it was after 2020. I wanted to get back into hiking. I hadn't hiked in like 5, 6 years. So I was looking at the Facebook groups and I found a couple. And so I put my name on your list, got onto the SCV Hikers group. It took me a little while because the hikes were early, right? They all started 6 or earlier
Oh, yes.
every Sunday. And so I was a little leery of that, not knowing anybody in the group and just getting out there that early. So finally, I decided to check it out, and I did.
And you started on Mother's Day of 2021, I believe, right?
Yes. And it was a nice close hike close to where I lived. So I thought it was good.
When you touched on the morning thing, it's something that I hiked with a group of guys before I officially started SCV Hikers, who were great. I went to church with them, and we were kind of all going through our own journeys on different things, just sort of trying to better ourselves and heal ourselves in different ways. And so one of the things that they like to do was start really early, and they would start before sunrise. And I had the same kind of learning curve that you did, starting super early. But the good thing about it, especially in Los Angeles, was that when you start that early, it's cooler than starting right out of the gate in the 70s or 80s. It's also less crowded because a lot of the more popular hiking trails in LA obviously get a lot more crowded sooner. So waiting until even 8 in the morning, you're going to double or triple the amount of people you're going to see out there and tripping over each other. But the other thing too, as a photographer, I just love that it's just prettier. You know, you to see the sunrise together and to take photos. I think it's just more camera friendly and just less of an eyesore too.
Yeah, I thought the pictures that were coming out were great. And it was just beautiful to see these sunrises because I was not used to ever doing that. I don't think I'd ever been to a sunrise hike. Even when we went to the Grand Canyon, my sisters were going out to take pictures of the sunrise, and I said, yeah, I'll pass. So I had never gone out there that early. So, I mean, it was just amazing. I do that all the time now with this group, and I would have never thought that I would be one of those early morning hikers ever.
Thank you also. I just have to thank you. I know that in person I have, but I got in a relationship with an ex-girlfriend of mine in 2021, and she lived in Atlanta. And at the time, we started out doing long distance. She's now my wife. I'm in Atlanta now, and for those listening, and Monica has taken the reins full force. So she is running SCV Hikers now. One of the things that's always was challenging for me is which hike do we do? And sometimes I would, because we have a core group, I would say it's still about this, that there's about 5 or 6 that come almost every week. And then there's another layer of people that's another probably 5 or 6 people who come every few weeks or drop in a couple times a month, however that goes. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But picking the hike has always been a little maddening for me because some hiking groups do the same hike every week, or they do the same, 1, 2, or 3 different hikes and they alternate. And that's cool as long as your hiking group wants to do that. But I wanted to sort of challenge us to go out and really see.
We've done some incredible hikes that I knew nothing about. I grew up in Southern California, in LA, right, or in the Valley. And there's so many hikes that we've done as a group that I'm like, this was in our backyard and I've never ever been here. So that part's been pretty amazing also.
Yeah, and even with the sort of, I call it the punt when you don't know, it's like, well, there's always Vasquez Rocks, and well, there's always, there's a half a dozen hikes that we can go to, and we're so blessed, especially for those of you tuning in, and most of you probably don't know necessarily where Santa Clarita is, and it's a northern suburb about 25 miles north of Los Angeles.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
But it's got a lot of amazing hikes right there in Santa Clarita. But then also you can jump in the car and in half hour, 40 minutes, be at the beach in Malibu or be in the mountains. But there's a good dozen or I'm sure many more hikes in Santa Clarita that we haven't even uncovered yet, and even new trails that are being opened too. There's a couple that have opened in the 5 years that we've been doing this now.
Right. And that's another thing about leaving early on a Sunday morning. You can take the 405 and be 40 miles down the road in 40 minutes. So you can get there quickly, not be stuck in traffic. So that was another good thing about going early. Nobody's on the road.
Totally, totally. It's also just one of those things that kind of bonds us as well as a group. When we start that early, there's a certain commitment that we have with our hikers, and so it really bonds us as a group. And what I've noticed too, because you touched on this a little bit, is we're a very photogenic group in the sense that not that we're all pretty people by any means, but we take a lot of pictures. And some people are hiking with us and like, man, you guys stop a lot and take a lot of pictures. What's the deal? But it also works as kind of a marketing tool because people will sort of hover. I call them the social media stalkers who will watch us for a while. And then they'll say, hey, I've been looking at the pictures and I didn't even know about this place and that place. And then they joined us.
That's so funny. And I had to go through that too when I was brand new. Like, oh, we're stopping again. Oh, we're taking pictures. I didn't know that we're going to stop and look at everything and which is really nice. I just didn't know right when you start. It's like, oh, okay. So, and we don't let anybody get left behind, right? We're not going to just say, okay, you're too slow. So we're taking off, right? So there's waiting for others. There's the taking pictures. There's the group shots. So, I had to get used to that. My old hiking group that I did years ago, we just hiked to the top and hiked to the bottom, and that was it. But I found that a really nice part, actually, of hiking. It's like, oh, this you can really see everything. Oh, we can spend some time here, take it all in. So it was really nice.
I really like the fellowship itself. I think that's what you were talking about is just because there are those who really want to go and boom, I want to get up that mountain fast. And I get it. And there are groups that are focused on that. There are others who we've met and others who've kind of come and gone with our group who are like, I can't go this slow. I can't. Now we don't lollygag, I wouldn't say, but we challenge ourselves and there are parts of the hike where we get going and we get the exercise. But it's also one of my goals with SCV hikers anyway. Like I said, I was kind of working on myself was part of my goal and sort of my connection with a greater spirituality, whatever your faith is. I definitely would feel a connection with something larger than me, just being there in nature.
Yeah, I mean, what I really liked about going with this group was the camaraderie, right? So I'm like, oh, you know what? Pick Pilates where no one's talking to each other, or go with this group where, okay, it's a really great group of people and you're doing something with others and enjoying the company of others. I thought that was, number one, as why I picked the hiking group. Because, oh, this is great that I get to do this with a group. And I didn't even know any of these people, but they quickly became some of my best friends. That part was amazing that I didn't expect at all.
Yeah, we've met some other hiking groups along the way and seen them online. And in some cases, some of us have joined up and gone on a hike or two with some of the other groups, which is great too. That's the case in Georgia here as well. I hike a lot with my wife. The hiking thing was something that I didn't do when I was younger. And so she really kind of was drawn to that. And then, so when we started commuting back and forth and I started coming to Atlanta to visit her, she goes, hey, let's go on a hike. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. Because I wasn't going to make her do it or kind of pressure her into it because that was just something that was close to me. But as it turned out, she really liked it. So it's kind of fun too that way. There's the connection, I think personally, and this isn't necessarily for everybody, but in my experience, and you touched on it, is that it definitely is a connection to something greater and just the fellowship itself too. There's a bond that happens with our group and can bring friendships together. Like I know that you and your two of your closest friends found each other in the hike as well. Can you talk about that a little?
I met a couple of ladies out there, right, on the hills here in the hikes, Robin and Sue, that were all from different walks of life. And we just kind of connected when we're up hiking. And we took that into, hey, you know what, this is a lot of fun. We should start walking in the mornings before work, give us something to do and get some exercise on a daily basis. So now we're walking, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times a week, early mornings. Same thing, 5:30, 5:45, 6 o'clock, sunrise, little walks and get our exercise in, get our steps in before work. We have now taken trips to Ireland together. We just got back from Sedona on a trip, a hiking trip, birthday trip that we took together. And these people, I only met them in 2021. I mean, and here I'm taking trips with them, and I haven't taken trips with so many of my other friends, but that just happens to click with all of us. And so it's kind of amazing how that happened. And you wouldn't think about it if you're looking at us, looking outward or whatever they say, or looking in at us, because again, three different, completely different types of people, different outlooks on life or different jobs, and one's retired, and it just, we are so different, but we just have a great time together. You talk a lot. There's a lot of healing and mental health that goes along with walking and talking with friends. Sometimes we're hiking, we're like, oh, we're already to the top. Okay, so now we're going to go here, because you just don't realize. So you're getting that exercise, but you're also getting that therapy of talking to your friends while you're doing this. And it's just so awesome for your mental health.
I think it's fair to say that in the United States, we've become such a divided society in so many ways. And in social media, we search for our like-minded people, and maybe we cut ourselves out. And even just the way that things have been with politics and so on over the last decade, or maybe longer than that, that I'm certainly guilty of cutting off certain relationships with people who I'm not like-minded with. And yet, I think that the act of hiking is something that can bring us together, but certainly, like you said, with people from very different walks of life. I mean, there's a guy who hikes with us regularly who's a rocket scientist, and there's a person who sells hydraulic equipment, and there's a person who's in law enforcement, and so it's interesting to have all of those different viewpoints with our commonality of climbing up that mountain this week. We have another trip that's become an annual trip. One year we decided to go up and see my cousins that live in the Upper Sierras, and they run a business where one store leases out like boating equipment and stand-up paddle boards and so forth, and another one rents out like mountain climbing and hiking gear, and then they have a third store that's sporting goods in general. But I thought, well, hey, let's do this. That was one of the first trips we did out of town. And I thought, we'll do that. And then afterwards, everybody's like, hey, when are we going to go back? And I'm like, really? And so we did, because again, it was one of those things that I think brought us together. And my cousins were like, cool, not just because we were renting gear from them, but they're passionate about nature and the outdoors. And I think it's been fun for them to share that with us. And they have other groups besides me that come in, other family members and other people who are regulars with their business. But there's, again, just something about getting out there. It's almost, in a way, it's almost like summer camp for adults to be able to go off and sort of explore different parts of what we do with hiking.
Right. And it's kind of amazing that we take this hiking group and get the core folks and go on these, overnight trips or 3-night trips with these people. And we have a blast, and we hike all weekend, and we hang out in the cabin. And, other people ask me, oh, you're going out of town with your hiking group? That's odd. I'm like, no, it's a great time. And it has been really fun. So, but it is unusual when other people are looking in at it saying, oh, okay.
Something like the Hollywood sign for us is like, there's so many people, and people I think can relate to this in other cities too outside of LA. It's like, how often have you lived in New York or Chicago or wherever you live? And it's like, I always wanted to go see that or go do that or go climb that. And so many people have said, I've lived in Hollywood my whole life and I've never been up to the Hollywood sign. So there's that aspect of it too, just kind of a way to kind of get to know your own hometown in some ways.
And I was one of those people. That is one that I had not done before.
And so how did that feel for you to sort of get out and do that the first time?
That was great. And that was one that I had taken my grandson with us. He joined us on that trip. So he was very excited as well as seeing the Hollywood sign. And he was only 12. And I'm like, you are so lucky to be only 12 and coming up here to see this. I am this age, my first time coming up here. And I love that you always have, the backgrounds for the areas and what movies have been filmed here and the neighborhoods and what houses have been in shows and movies. So that's always, fun to hear as well.
Absolutely. And in Hollywood, that's a lot of fun because, like you say, there's filming locations or famous actors who live here or there. And Atlanta, my wife and I did a hike today. It's called Arabia Mountain, which is really unusual. You feel like you're on the surface of the moon, and it's right in the middle of Atlanta. But wherever you live, you're listening, thinking, I've always wanted to go there or go there. That it's really kind of a fascinating thing. And being in LA, it's great because there's so many different kind of desert terrains. And then at certain times of year, you get the green the beautiful green and then the ocean views. And we're talking about doing a hike that's the Channel Islands offshore, which is a whole different sort of set of things to do. You'd mentioned you'd brought your grandson and your granddaughter on some hikes, and they surprised you and surprised all of us because they were just so good. I had been going through a divorce, and I really wanted my kids to join me. My middle son and my youngest really love it too. As it turns out, their least favorite thing, like so many, is the time of day. But they've sort of learned, when I had, especially my youngest for the weekend, he would say, "Okay, please wake me up, Dado. I really want to do this one. And I know I'm a pain in the butt about getting up in the morning." And he'd say, "Please wake me up because I really want to go." And I'm like, "Okay, great." And so we do it. But it's multi-generational that way. And sometimes it can be a way to really open the lines of communication.
There was a hike that we did, Vasquez Rocks, one of the times where my grandson was there. And I think he was about 11, and your son was there, who was what, 16, 17. And just even those two ages, right? Everybody was following your son around. Oh, there was like 3 or 4 11-year-olds or 10-year-olds on that hike. And then you had all of the adults. So there you go as well. So there's 3 different kind of age groups. But that was great to see too, just how they interacted, with the adults, with the teenagers, with all of that. And they're learning the etiquette that you need to have. You got to move over for these people, and you got to be polite for these people, and you have to wait for the people that are in the back, that kind of thing. So it's all, growth, I think, for all of them, or all of us.
Good morning, SCV hikers. What would you offer to people in the experience you've had with us these last 5 years?
Look up the hiking groups. I mean, there's so many places on social media now that you can find them, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or Meetup or any of them. There's so many now that are on there. So it's very easy to find them. If you don't feel comfortable doing it by yourself, take a friend, right? Take a friend, take a spouse, take a kid, take a teenager, whatever you need to do if you don't want to go by yourself. But just try it, and I think you'll be amazed, and you can totally find one that will work for what you want to do.
That's great. That's great. Great parting words there. Thank you, my friend Monica, and co-leader and now leader of SCV Hikers. Monica, thank you so much for taking the time out and just sharing some of your thoughts on hiking and the greater good. And look forward to hitting the trails with you again soon.
All right. Well, you're welcome. It was a pleasure.